Kia ora. Welcome to my morning ramble on Friday the 11th of September 2022. Apologies for the gaps and rambles, work and all that kind of stuff. And now seeing I've got completely the wrong glasses on this morning. This is what happens. That's fine. I have a pair for computer use and reading. For those that don't know, I've got that one eye's far-sighted, one eye's left-sided thing since I was a kid. So I find it easier these days, rather than dealing with bifocals and trifocals and all that annoyingness, just to have a set of glasses for driving and long distance correction, and another pair for closer to work. Because I do a lot of screen and computer use, it was just simpler. But occasionally on mornings like this, I will get up and have entirely the wrong glasses. So anyway, doesn't really affect this ramble, so I'll shut up and move on. Yeah, we're coming into a cold snap this weekend. Had a friend, Ken, who messaged me asking me if we were ready for the cold, and I was like, winter's quite a way away. Didn't really quite get what he was talking about, because I normally keep track of the weather and have not been quite keeping track of the weather as much lately, because things have been a little crazy. So yeah, I checked the weather, and lo and behold, we're below freezing this weekend. Pretty much from, I think, Saturday onwards. It'd be cold tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, but down to the into the feels like mid-20s and actual below freezing. So the zillion-dollar question there is, are we ready for the cold snap? And the answer is, well, we don't have a choice. So it is what it is. I talked about winterizing, and we've been making plans to go and pick up straw and stuff like that, but that's not likely to happen between now and the morning. Having said that, our RV has the cold weather winterizing kit, and it has weathered many winters in Ohio without any problems. So I am really not overly concerned. I'm not even partially concerned. We will just have to roll with the punches as they come. So a couple of days of freezing cold, I don't think really going to be a big issue for us. We'll dress up a little warmer and all the rest of it, but that's pretty much it. We have heating and hot water and blah 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 blah, all that kind of stuff. Anywho's, so catch up from the last ramble. We got the start of the insulation for the shed. Dawn's been dropping that into the shed. Went for slightly better insulation than we did actually in Ohio, weirdly, but it has better moisture protection and stuff, so it's a necessary thing for Tennessee. So that is pretty much underway. I know it looks a bit barren here at the moment, by the way. There's not much can be done about that. It is what it is. We've got not a lot of leaves left on the trees. But yeah, so the start of the winterizing of the shed. So probably pick up some more rolls and maybe today, and get those underway and pretty much complete most of the interior walls at the very least. Again, as I said, in the winterizing, we're not going to do anything fancy around the shed at this time. We'll probably just use the straw bales around that as well, and that'll pack that up. And we've got to do the same thing with the totes. All of our water totes are full. We've got about 500 gallons of water. So that's with our consumptions. That's 2 months worth of water without really, being frugal or anything. But it's not an issue for us to go and get more. So we're just running with 2 totes for now. We will be adding a third tote, and if I go wandering over towards where the totes are, we'll be adding a third tote, and that will increase our water capacity by another 250 odd gallons. But the plan for that one is actually to get some guttering and water catchment for the shed and start the process of funneling that, filtering that. So I'm not sure if you can see what we have here. There's actually 3 totes there, but the white one on the end is the light one that we use to fill the other 2 up. Had a neighbour come over and he was like, I've never seen totes with that aluminum cladding before. And it's like, yeah, I wish we'd actually picked a few more of them up when we had the chance, but we got those many years ago, and with plans to use them in Ohio for rainwater catchment and stuff, and never quite got around to doing that. We got, lockdowns and things occurred, and we got more focused on gardens, straw bale gardens, and livestock and stuff. So, distractions, good distractions, but distractions. But now they're definitely being used, actively used. They're all being cleaned out properly and used. And I think Dawn has a video about our water supply. She just has a little 12-volt pump that we just have hooked up that it does the work. And but this time around, she actually gravity fed the gravity siphoned the water out of the tote on the truck, which is kind of cool, because it didn't involve much effort and really did most of the work, probably 75% of the work of actually doing transferring the water. So all good. What else to talk about today? Nothing really kind of on my mind at the moment. So solar. We took the plunge and pulled the trigger on the, speaking of solar, I'm just going to remove some leaves here, don't mind me. We've had rain and a little bit of air and wind and stuff. The solar's been performing really well. We're really impressed. We had a couple of really super cloudy days, so we had to be a little careful with our power consumption, but really it turns out we didn't need to be that careful. I think we got down to about 30%. We didn't get below 30%, might have been 33 on our current rig. And then we have days like yesterday where it wasn't really super mega sunny, but we started with a fairly low value on that battery charge, because we come out of those aforementioned cloudy days where there was really not a lot coming through. And by the time we'd reached midday, the battery was already at 100%, and we were having to, not having to, but choosing to, turn on other devices that were running on propane and stuff just to get that extra power use. So, currently what we have is great. I think it's probably good for conservative use, probably about 3 days before we'd probably have to, if we didn't really get in anything, at all dribbling through, we'd probably have to turn the generator on to do a top up at that stage. But I mean, that's a couple of hours with the generator, and we have a full battery again. So, you can math that from there. But that's all, based around power consumption. If we do a little more, like we have to run the furnace, then, the power use on the RV will need topping up a little more frequently, and all that kind of stuff as well. So there's no matter how you try and crunch this in a spreadsheet, you don't really know until you know. For anyone who's planning solar, who's watching this and planning solar, I might have to try and do a video on this separately as well, add that onto the pile, to the to-do pile, on how I calculate all this out, and then really how we kind of measure it, and just a caveat with that one, I'm not super anal retentive about micro managing every single, today we used X amount and blah 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 blah. I tend to eyeball it. We just watch power consumption and use generally, and then we just turn things off if we need to, or we just go, nah, it's fine, let's just turn it on, we've got plenty. So yeah, where was I? Oh yes, solar. So we pulled the plug on the actual, what we'll call the core solar rig. So if you've been following, you'll know that prior to moving down, we decided, rather than going through the hassle of trying to source batteries and inverters and stuff in the middle of the supply chain challenge that was ongoing, with waiting for pre-orders to arrive and not knowing whether they're going to arrive, and not knowing if our address is even going to be viable for deliveries, which is, thankfully, with hindsight, that was a good plan, because it took us a while to get registered on the radar through the postal system. The plan went and changed, and so we spent a little more than we would have, or than we planned to spend, by purchasing the Delta Pro. But again, hindsight's worked well in our favour. It's convenient, it's easy to use, it's remote management, it's 30 amp capacity, so it fits our RV needs perfectly. If you have a 50 amp RV, well, you'll probably have to look at one of the new Blue-Ity options, which is coming out, unless EcoFlow come out with a 50 amp version, which is likely. But anyway, so it's easy to use. With all the stress of moving, that was just one less thing that we needed to worry about. And I just kind of pulled the panels out and plugged it in, and if you watch some of those rambles and videos, you will have seen, it's pretty, what we call a huckery system. It's held together with number 8 fencing wire and all that kind of stuff. It's very Kiwiism there. But the point of it is that right out of the gate, it basically worked. We were getting power, and we were getting more power than we needed. So win-win. Not saying that if you try this at home, that's actually good for you, but from a camper perspective, it was simple and easy and straightforward. However, there's stuff that we want to do in the shed. The original plan is still to have enough power generation that we can actually provide power to the shed and multiple cabins when the kids come down, and that plan has not changed. So where do we go from here? Well, I follow Will Prowse YouTube channel, a couple of others, David Pos and some others on YouTube are into solar power. I'll drop some links into this Ramble. They're excellent, really great resources, and just really interesting what they're actually doing and how they go about it. Particularly if you don't know much about what's happening and for current solar trends, then I highly recommend doing some homework and research, and these are great places to start. That crashing noise was a branch or something falling. Interesting. All right, so away from the traffic. Will timely and conveniently, maybe he's psychic, who knows, posted up a video on, hey, you can do a cheaper version of a Delta Pro. I won't go into the intricacies of it. You can find it on his channel. It's an excellent video, but I'm not as expert as he is. I don't completely agree with his comparison. Owning a Delta Pro and knowing how it works, I think there's still some definite pluses. But the bottom line is, yes, you can actually put a much more powerful system together compared to the Delta Pro for less money. All right, so this is really just an offshoot of some of the stuff that he's been doing with solar that we're basically just modeling. Stand on the shoulders of giants, and don't try and reinvent the wheel if the wheel works fine, kind of stuff. So we've ordered the basics at this stage. Pretty much just a 5 kilowatt hour battery, which is about a little more than 50% more than what we currently have in the Delta Pro, and an inverter. I was wanting to go for a more powerful inverter. That was part of the original plan, but I opted for a smaller one. Smaller, less expensive, just as capable. but it doesn't have quite as much power output. It's 3000 watts rather than 6500 watts. And the reason for that is that we have the Delta Pro, and the other reason for that is that I can scale these as needed. They're the smaller units to manage, they're less expensive, and we're still learning. I'd rather make a mistake with a $750 inverter than make a mistake with a $1,300 plus shipping and taxes and stuff inverter, if you know what I mean. And ultimately the end game from a solar perspective for us is that when we build the house out, we will be probably rebuilding our solar for the house, because the kids are going to be doing their own thing, will want their own power and stuff, and if the system is working capably for what they need, then there's no point in uprooting it. We'll just spend a bit more money, which means ultimately we'll be spending more money over time, but we're off grid. It doesn't mean that it's less expensive outlay. It just means that we're not reliant on conventional utility companies to do our stuff for us. It's us. We are our own utility company, which is something you'll hear me say again from time to time. So anyway, we'll do more on that when it arrives. It's been ordered. It should be here in a couple of weeks, hopefully. We'll be installing that in the shed, in the barn, and the goal for that, just very quickly, and this will make more sense when you actually see it rather than me talking about it as usual or rambling about it, is we'll take the current solar array and that'll be plugged to the new inverter. The new inverter will be supplying power to the battery bank, but it'll also be supplying power to the Delta Pro. So we'll be just running AC from the inverter to the Delta Pro to keep that topped up as it requires it. And I've got a couple of extra panels ordered as well, which I've got some single mount kits, which I already had, that are we're just going to mount these panels on that just to keep the Delta Pro kind of running independently if we need it. And the other advantage is that well, sorry, let me take that back again. So those are two panels, we'll get full use out of those. So that'll be 400 watts of solar going onto the Delta Pro, which is plenty if it's going to get topped up from the new rig, and from time to time if it needs it. And the current panels, as I mentioned, we have 1600 watts of solar, close to, but we don't get to use the full capability of that because of the constraints on the Delta Pro. Those constraints go away, so we can actually have 1600. We actually have, at the moment, technically we have 1200 watts as opposed to 1600 watts, but this will give us a full 1600 watt capability and a couple more panels as well technically, so 2000 watts of solar, which is quite a lot. If you don't know what 2000 watts of solar is, let's just say optimally in summer on a really nice sunny day when you're getting a lot of sun on it and you're converting a good chunk of that, you can run your air conditioning quite happily for a period of time, and you probably still have excess power to do other stuff that you want to do and keep things running as well. The battery bank is really there for energy storage when we don't have the sun shining and we do still need to use power and we still need to run appliances and things for a period of time. So anyways, this will all make sense in short course, but the goal is to have all this installed by, well, the end of the year obviously, but preferably by our winter, the GI. And that's it. This is fast approaching 20 minutes, which is way too long for a ramble. But I got a bit carried away and I apologise for that. If you stuck the course so far, one other thing to bear in mind is that I was wrong on solar credits. Apparently that has changed. That is now 30% rebate on those in America. So we've spent, as I said, about 6K, I think, all up on the current kind of solar rig. with some extra bits and pieces that are currently put aside for the larger build. But when these other items arrive, I'll be installing those. So I think we'll spend about, I'd have to add it up, but and I will add it up because I have to for the form, but quick guesstimate is we've spent about 10k on our solar so far, including this latest purchase, and that's giving us close to 10 kilowatt hours of storage. So you can divide that 10,000 by 10 and say it's $1,000 per kilowatt hour of storage, which is not quite true, because a good chunk of that is actually panels. But the point of it is $10,000 of installed solar that meets the requirements for the tax rebate is a fairly healthy return, considering the amount of taxes that I pay. It would be nice to have something back off that. And obviously any taxes, if I do get a tax refund, well, gee, no surprises where that's going. Probably into more solar, so it'll rinse and repeat. I don't believe there's any limit on that either. Something I was reading. I have to do more digging on that and maybe post some links. But anyway, if you are looking into getting solar, your run might, depending on what you're getting, your run may be a bit late this time of the year, because the rules and guidelines are that it actually has to be installed and providing power. So in a general sense, but that tax credit is through to 2033, I believe, unless another administration comes in and changes everything, but you know, whatever. So something to consider when you do, should you decide to take the plunge here in the States anyway, is look into the options that your state provides. This isn't a state one, this is a federal one, state and or federal. And you know, if you're going to take the plunge, just be aware that there is some clawback in terms of incentives for getting the stuff in. I did not factor these into my calculations. You may want to factor these into your calculations. I don't factor them into my calculations because if the tax credit was not even there, it wouldn't matter. This is just icing on the cake. Your point of view may be that your budgets are so tight that you need to factor that in. I don't factor these kinds of things in also because you never know what's going to happen, whether these things may get cancelled at the last, you know, who knows. It's a bureaucratic administrative piece of bait on the end of a hook. So, and I'm perfectly happy to use those. I'm not against money by any means or stretch. And if it's a mechanism for me getting money back that I've already paid to the government and the government's paying me some money back to do this, then no one's getting hurt. So that's all good. All right, okay, 23 minutes. This must be one of my longest rambles. We'll talk again tomorrow, maybe, depending on how frozen it is. And hope you all have a great Friday. Best wishes and thoughts to all the veterans out there. Just thumbs up. All right, take care.